What would you do if you saw a child in a hospital cradling a newborn baby in their arms? The sight alone would stop anyone in their tracks, raising questions that no one could easily answer. This is exactly what happened on an ordinary afternoon at San Rafael General Hospital. A boy, just 12 years old, stepped through the doors with a tiny infant, her cries soft but insistent, leaving the staff frozen in shock. But the story doesn't end with that moment of disbelief. What unfolded next unraveled a tale so heart-wrenching and profound that it challenged everything we think we know about resilience, love, and the limits of human endurance. Behind his young face was a depth of compassion and strength that defied his years, and in his arms was not just a baby, but his daughter, a life he was determined to protect against all odds. This isn't just a story about survival. It's about the power of connection, the strength found in the most unexpected places, and a community that came together to offer care when it was needed most. As we journey through Daniel and Emma's incredible tale, prepare yourself to be moved, challenged, and reminded of what it truly means to care. It was an ordinary afternoon at San Rafael General Hospital, where the hustle and bustle mirrored the rhythm of life itself. Then, like a ripple in the still waters, an unexpected scene unfolded. A young boy, barely 12 years old, stepped through the sliding doors with a newborn baby cradled in his arms. The boy's disheveled hair, dirt-streaked face, and trembling hands told a story of urgency and despair before he even spoke. The medical staff, seasoned by years of emergencies, froze in collective disbelief. His name was Daniel, and he carried not just the weight of the baby, but an invisible burden that no child should bear. The tiny infant, wrapped in a faded towel, let out a soft cry, as if pleading for attention. Compassion rippled through the room as nurses rushed to take the baby and usher Daniel into a chair. Amidst the chaos, the receptionist's hand hovered over the phone, ready to summon social services. Yet, all eyes were fixed on this unlikely pair, an image so raw it seemed to etch itself into their memories. The boy's small stature made the scene all the more poignant. How could someone so young have come to this point? Whispers darted across the room as Daniel sat silently, clutching the towel that had held the baby. The air was thick with unspoken questions, each more pressing than the last. His silence wasn't merely a lack of words. It was the kind of quiet that comes from wounds too deep to articulate. Moments later, the baby's cries softened, a fragile melody that tugged at every heart present. One nurse, her eyes brimming with tears, knelt down and whispered softly, "What's her name? Sweetie?" The boy looked up, his gaze steady yet brimming with pain. "Emma," he said, his voice cracking under the weight of emotions too vast for his age. A name, simple yet profound, suddenly made the tiny life in his arms feel more tangible. As the doctor stepped in, assessing the baby's fragile condition, Daniel refused to let go of Emma's tiny hand. It was as though that small connection grounded him in the storm of emotions and confusion. The staff exchanged glances, knowing this was not just a medical emergency, but a human story that demanded care in every sense of the word. In that moment, professionalism blended with compassion, their roles as healers extending beyond the physical. Outside, the golden glow of dusk painted the sky, but inside the hospital, a different kind of light filled the room. It was the glow of shared humanity, the unspoken bond that comes from witnessing something both heartbreaking and awe-inspiring. Even the most seasoned doctors, hardened by years of experience, felt a lump in their throats. Life had thrown a curveball, and they were all part of the catch. For the hospital staff, time seemed to slow. Each minute with Daniel and Emma brought more questions, yet no answers were forthcoming. A social worker was called, yet her arrival felt like an eternity away. Daniel, with his head held high despite his trembling body, seemed to draw strength from the very presence of the baby. It was a sight no one would forget. A boy standing in the eye of a hurricane, holding onto the one thing that gave him purpose. As the tension thickened, Daniel's frazzled appearance began to reveal hints of a story far more complex than anyone could have imagined. The staff braced themselves, their compassion mingling with an unrelenting curiosity. Whatever brought Daniel here was not just an anomaly. It was the beginning of a tale that would unravel layers of care, heartbreak, and resilience. As the medical team worked to stabilize baby Emma, a social worker gently approached Daniel, her voice calm and reassuring. "Can you tell me what happened, Daniel?" she asked, leaning in to meet his weary eyes. The room seemed to hold its breath as the boy hesitated, his small hands trembling. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, he began to unravel a truth that no one was prepared to hear. What followed turned an already shocking scene into something even more heartbreaking. Daniel explained that Emma was his daughter, born from a situation far too complex for his young mind to fully comprehend. He spoke of a neighbor, a young woman in her 20s, who had coerced him into a relationship he didn't understand. Each word felt like a dagger in the room's collective heart. The staff exchanged glances, their faces a mixture of compassion and silent outrage. The weight of Daniel's revelation was almost unbearable, but his courage in speaking out was undeniable. It wasn't just the shock of his words that hit so hard. It was the realization of how much this 12-year-old had endured. Life had handed him a situation that would challenge even the strongest of adults. Yet, here he was, bravely putting Emma's well-being above all else. The social worker's eyes glistened with unshed tears as she assured him he was safe now, that no one would hurt him or Emma again. Her words seemed to give Daniel a glimmer of hope. The revelation spread through the hospital like wildfire, leaving a trail of astonishment and concern. The staff, trained to handle emergencies, now found themselves grappling with emotions they rarely encountered so viscerally. Compassion became the cornerstone of their actions, each person determined to ensure Daniel and Emma received the care they deserved. But even as they rallied around the boy, the gravity of his story weighed heavily on their minds. Doctors, nurses, and social workers alike struggled to process how someone so young could face such profound trauma. Daniel's demeanor, both fragile and fiercely protective, served as a stark reminder of his resilience. He wasn't just a victim. He was a father, trying against all odds to shield his daughter from the same darkness he had endured. His love for Emma was palpable, radiating in every glance and gesture. The situation demanded action, not just compassion. Authorities were alerted, and an investigation was set into motion. Yet, the focus remained squarely on Daniel and Emma's immediate needs. The hospital staff worked tirelessly, ensuring Emma was healthy and Daniel had a safe place to rest. Even as they moved with professional precision, their hearts were deeply invested. This wasn't just protocol, it was personal. Meanwhile, Daniel's story began to unravel layers of disbelief and empathy among those who heard it. How could something like this happen right under the noses of an unsuspecting community? His words painted a picture of neglect, manipulation, and resilience that would haunt everyone involved. It wasn't just a story of trauma. It was a call to action, a stark reminder of how vulnerable children can be. Despite the weight of his tale, Daniel's resolve shone through. He didn't ask for pity or demand help. He simply wanted Emma to be safe. His courage inspired everyone around him to dig deeper into their reservoirs of compassion and care. Yet, even as they comforted him, the unspoken question lingered in the air. What would it take to bring justice and healing to a situation so deeply fractured? As the night deepened, Daniel stayed close to Emma, refusing to let her out of his sight. The way he cradled her, his small hands gently stroking her tiny fingers, spoke volumes. It wasn't the care of a child playing house. It was the fierce, instinctual protection of a father. His tender touch and quiet whispers to calm her cries revealed a bond forged in the fire of adversity. The hospital staff couldn't help but marvel at the depth of love radiating from this 12-year-old boy. Daniel's eyes, though weary, held a steadfast determination. He spoke softly about Emma, sharing that her name meant everything to him. "It's like hope," he explained, his voice steady despite the storm inside him. For Daniel, Emma was more than a responsibility. She was his anchor. The weight of being her protector didn't crush him. It gave him purpose. This connection was something the hospital staff hadn't expected, but it was undeniably real. Even the most experienced caregivers found themselves inspired by Daniel's devotion. A nurse, her voice choked with emotion, remarked how rare it was to see such pure, unyielding love in someone so young. The boy's protectiveness transcended his age, proving that compassion and care don't come with a minimum requirement. It was a humbling reminder that love, even in its simplest form, has the power to break through the darkest circumstances. As Daniel held Emma close, his fear occasionally broke through his brave facade. "I don't want anything bad to happen to her," he admitted to a social worker, his voice trembling. But it was this vulnerability that revealed the depth of his resolve. Fear didn't weaken him. It strengthened his commitment to Emma's safety. His emotions, raw and unfiltered, made his connection with her even more profound. The doctors noticed how Daniel's presence had a calming effect on the baby. Emma, despite her fragile condition, seemed to settle when he was near. It was as if she recognized the rhythm of his heartbeat, a rhythm that promised safety and love. The bond between them wasn't just emotional. It was almost tangible, a thread that tied their fates together in a way no one could sever. For Daniel, every moment with Emma was an opportunity to express his care. He insisted on feeding her when the nurses brought formula, his hands clumsy but his resolve unwavering. "I'll learn," he said when someone offered to help. And learn he did, each action driven by an unspoken promise to be the father Emma deserved. His small victories in caring for her filled the room with a quiet, hopeful energy. Witnessing this connection, the hospital staff couldn't help but reflect on their own lives. Daniel's love for Emma, despite the odds, was a reminder of the resilience of the human spirit. It wasn't just about surviving. It was about finding meaning in the struggle. His story wasn't just heartbreaking. It was profoundly inspiring. Yet, the road ahead for Daniel and Emma remained uncertain, leaving everyone anxious about what would come next. As the first rays of dawn broke through the hospital windows, Daniel's resolve only seemed to grow stronger. His bond with Emma was undeniable, a testament to the strength of a father's love. But even as the staff marveled at his courage, they knew his journey had only begun. The challenges awaiting them were daunting, but one thing was clear: Daniel wasn't facing them alone anymore. The hospital, often a place of hurried footsteps and somber faces, became a hub of unwavering action. The staff quickly organized themselves, pooling their skills and resources to support Daniel and Emma. Doctors monitored Emma's fragile health, while nurses ensured Daniel had food, rest, and reassurance. Social workers arrived with calm urgency, their expertise weaving a safety net that could catch the boy and his baby from freefall. Compassion flowed through every interaction, creating an environment where care transcended duty. Daniel's presence stirred something profound in everyone he encountered. Even the most seasoned professionals found themselves deeply moved by his courage and love for Emma. It wasn't just a case. It was a life that demanded more than clinical solutions. Nurses took turns staying close to him, offering words of comfort that felt less like formalities and more like promises. Each moment of connection became a testament to the hospital's collective humanity. The arrival of legal authorities brought a sense of structure to the unfolding chaos. Detectives, with their notepads and earnest expressions, began piecing together the circumstances surrounding Daniel and Emma's situation. Their questions were gentle but probing, aimed at understanding the layers of a story that seemed almost too complex for someone so young to navigate. Yet, through it all, Daniel held his ground, speaking not just for himself but for Emma, too. Social workers focused on stabilizing Daniel emotionally, recognizing that his mental health was as critical as Emma's physical well-being. They introduced him to breathing exercises, simple techniques to help calm the storm inside him. Though hesitant at first, Daniel embraced their efforts, sensing that their care was genuine. For a boy who had grown accustomed to fending for himself, this newfound support felt both unfamiliar and profoundly comforting. Meanwhile, the community within the hospital began to expand. Word of Daniel and Emma's story spread beyond the walls, reaching local organizations and advocates. Offers of help poured in, from donations of baby supplies to messages of encouragement. It was a reminder that even in the darkest moments, a network of care could illuminate a path forward. Strangers became allies, their collective compassion forming a bridge between survival and hope. One nurse, who had been with the hospital for decades, remarked that this wasn't just about helping a child. It was about standing up for what was right. Her words resonated deeply, sparking a ripple effect among the staff. Everyone, from janitors to administrators, found ways to contribute. It wasn't just a matter of protocol. It was a movement driven by an unyielding commitment to do good. Daniel, though overwhelmed, began to feel the weight on his shoulders lighten just a bit. He saw kindness in the faces around him, heard it in their words, and felt it in their actions. These weren't just helpers. They were people who cared. "Emma's lucky to have you," a social worker said softly, and for the first time in what felt like forever, Daniel managed a small, grateful smile. As the network of support strengthened, the hospital's efforts turned towards creating a plan for the days ahead. The immediate crisis had been addressed, but the journey for Daniel and Emma was far from over. Yet, amidst the uncertainty, one thing was clear. They were no longer alone. A community of care had formed around them, a foundation strong enough to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The arrival of legal authorities at the hospital brought a sense of seriousness that complemented the compassion already in motion. Detectives, mindful of Daniel's young age, approached their task with care. They asked questions slowly, gently, giving him time to respond without feeling pressured. Daniel's voice, though quiet, carried the weight of his experiences, revealing details that began to form a picture of the coercion he had endured. Every word was a piece of a heartbreaking puzzle. The investigation into the neighbor's actions gained immediate priority. Detectives sought to understand the circumstances that had led to Emma's birth, ensuring that the neighbor would face legal consequences for her exploitation of Daniel. At the same time, they worked to secure Daniel's safety, promising him that no harm would come to him or his daughter again. Their dual focus on justice and protection became a crucial part of the unfolding process. Child psychologists were brought in to support Daniel, their presence marked by calm and warmth. They understood that his trust wouldn't be earned through formality, but through genuine care. Sitting beside him rather than across from him, they created an atmosphere of safety. "You're very brave, Daniel," one of them said softly, acknowledging his courage. These moments of affirmation helped Daniel begin to process his emotions, little by little. The psychologists also turned their attention to Daniel's relationship with Emma. They recognized the strength of his paternal bond and worked to empower him rather than diminish his role. Through guided conversations, they taught him how to manage overwhelming feelings and navigate the responsibilities of fatherhood. Each session reinforced his resolve, showing him that asking for help wasn't a sign of weakness but an act of love for his daughter. Emma became the central thread in every discussion, a symbol of hope and the future. The psychologists framed their guidance around her needs, helping Daniel understand that his care for her also required him to care for himself. They introduced simple strategies, such as moments of mindfulness and ways to handle stress, which he embraced with surprising maturity. His determination to protect Emma became the foundation for his own healing journey. The collaboration between the legal and psychological teams ensured a holistic approach. While the detectives worked to secure justice, the psychologists focused on emotional recovery. Together, they created a framework where Daniel and Emma could feel safe, valued, and supported. The hospital staff marveled at how quickly these efforts began to shape Daniel's demeanor, giving him a glimmer of hope in an otherwise overwhelming situation. For Daniel, this network of professionals was unlike anything he had known before. It was a safety net of adults who didn't just listen but acted, each step showing him that he and Emma mattered. He started to share more of his thoughts and fears, opening up about moments he had previously buried deep inside. "I'm scared," he admitted during one session, "but I'll do anything to keep her safe." These words became a driving force for everyone involved. As the investigation moved forward and support systems strengthened, Daniel began to feel the ground under his feet solidify. The weight of his trauma was still heavy, but it no longer felt like a burden he had to carry alone. The professionals around him weren't just addressing the immediate crisis, they were building a path forward where healing and justice could walk hand in hand. Yet, even as progress was made, the future remained uncertain. a fragile hope tethered to the strength of those willing to fight for Daniel and Emma. With the immediate crisis stabilized, the focus shifted to creating a sustainable future for Daniel and Emma. Foster care specialists, handpicked for their experience with trauma cases, were brought in to find a family capable of providing the compassionate environment they both needed. These weren't just any caregivers. They were individuals with the empathy and patience to nurture a young boy and his infant daughter. Their involvement was a crucial step toward building the foundation for healing and stability. Daniel, though apprehensive, listened closely as the specialists explained their plans. They assured him that the goal wasn't to separate him from Emma, but to ensure they both had the support they needed to thrive. For a boy who had learned to distrust adults, their honesty and clarity were refreshing. He began to see them not as strangers taking over his life, but as allies helping him create a safe world for his daughter. The chosen foster family, a couple with experience caring for children from difficult circumstances, was introduced to Daniel and Emma gradually. Their warmth and understanding set a tone of trust from the outset. They didn't rush to impose themselves, but instead allowed Daniel to take the lead. Their approach mirrored the compassion he had already experienced in the hospital, reinforcing his belief that Emma would be cared for with the same love he felt for her. As plans solidified, the hospital team played a pivotal role in preparing Daniel for the transition. Nurses spent time teaching him basic infant care, from changing diapers to understanding Emma's feeding schedule. Social workers continued their emotional support, guiding him through the uncertainty with patience and kindness. These moments of education and connection gave Daniel a sense of empowerment, showing him that he was capable of being the father Emma deserved. Emma's health, once precarious, began to improve under the watchful eyes of doctors and nurses. Her tiny cries became stronger, a sign of resilience that mirrored her father's determination. For Daniel, every milestone Emma reached felt like a victory, a reminder that his efforts were making a tangible difference. His pride in her growth became a driving force, propelling him to face each new challenge with courage. The path forward wasn't just about survival. It was about giving Daniel and Emma a chance to truly live. Plans were put in place for Daniel to continue his education, with accommodations to ensure he could balance school and his responsibilities as a young father. Community programs offered additional support, from parenting workshops to financial assistance. Every resource was aimed at empowering him to build a life where Emma could thrive. Despite the progress, the road ahead wasn't without its challenges. Daniel still carried the weight of his trauma, and there were moments when the enormity of his situation overwhelmed him. But the network of care around him never wavered. Each setback was met with encouragement, reminding him that healing was a process, not a destination. The consistency of this support became a beacon of hope for both him and Emma. As Daniel and Emma prepared to leave the hospital, their story had already begun to inspire those around them. What had started as a desperate arrival turned into a testament to the power of compassion, resilience, and community. Yet, their journey was far from over. Ahead lay a future filled with uncertainty, but also possibility, a chance to redefine their lives, one step at a time. What does Daniel's story teach us about the extraordinary strength of the human spirit? It's a testament to resilience, to the power of love that transcends age and circumstance. But it also raises a challenge. Are we ready to confront the injustices that create stories like his? And more importantly, are we prepared to be part of the network of care that transforms despair into hope? Think about your own life. What would you do if faced with such unimaginable challenges? Daniel didn't have the luxury of choosing an easy path, but he showed that even in the darkest times, compassion and determination can light the way. His journey reminds us that care isn't just a word. It's an action, a commitment, and sometimes a lifeline. Now, it's your turn to act. Let Daniel and Emma's story inspire you to reflect on your own capacity for empathy. How can you extend that compassion to those around you? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear how this story moved you. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. Together, we can uncover more stories like this, tales of resilience, care, and the incredible power of human connection. Let's keep this conversation going and create a community where every voice matters.